So when I was younger, there were times where I had something that I just really wanted to show off. And I would always show it off to my parents, my grandpa, he lived with us, and friends. But for the most part, my parents and people within my household were the ones I want to show stuff off to. And for my example specifically is when I was younger, I used to collect the Bionicles, those Lego toys, and I would set them up in the garage. I'd hang them up and like do little setups as if they're doing like fighting scenes. But I would always go show my dad. I'd call him over. He'd stop whatever he was doing. He'd come and look at it. And I think the best part about that was the fact that he could drop whatever he was doing and just give me his full attention and just look at what I wanted to show him. There was a sense of validation, or just a sense of, it was a happiness feeling for me that the person that I really care about most is really just putting the attention towards this and showing, hey, I care about what you have to say. It was this longing or this feeling for validation from others that I loved and cared about. And it's just something that I think followed me as I was growing up. And I do think that I grew out of that need for it. But in all honesty, there's still a want for it that I have. And I don't think it's a problem, but I do think it can become a problem when it starts to almost undermine my own work or my own creativity. I don't blame others, right? I think that it's me doing it to myself. But with that being said, I do think that a lot of people feel that way. And as you start to grow up or as you start to mature in life, you become a little less dependent on that feeling. And but it definitely stays with us. We just happen to deal with it a little better. I think it's just that it genuinely feels good to know that there are people out there who will take the time and effort to put interest into your interest. I think the only time it becomes a problem is when you use that as your only source of validation. You don't do anything with yourself. You start to doubt yourself. You start to constantly look for others' approval or validation on your own creativity. And I think that's where you start to lose the plot, or that's where I lose the plot myself. And I feel like a lot of people can kind of relate to that. Now, with that being said, I have to tell myself that I chose to create music, and I need to realize that it's not the easiest to have someone sit down and, listen to your music. It's not as easy as putting a picture in front of them or putting a movie, something for them to visibly see. They have to sit there and actively listen. And I have to kind of remember that they're not being disrespectful intentionally. I don't think it's disrespectful at all. I think it's more, again, me playing with my own head in a sense where, if I'm showing you music or I'm showing you something that I created, I'll admit it does kind of hurt if I see you actively, scrolling on your phone, or if you have a conversation with someone. In my eyes, it's a kind of a respect thing. It almost says, hey, I told you I'm going to listen to this, but I mean, it's background noise. You're not taking your time and attention to put into this that I'm trying to show you. And I can understand that not every song's going to be like that, where you have to actively listen. Some songs are literally just, oh, I like how that sounds. And there's nothing else to it. It's just, it sounds nice. You like it. Sometimes I'll even try to show someone music and, I kind of want them to sit there and just tune everything else out, but just listen to what what I'm showing them. And that's not to say that, I'll forcibly sit there and tell someone, hey, here's my new song, or here's this that I'm working on. I don't do that. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair to anybody. But if you're going to actively ask me, hey, what is this? What's going on? What are you working on? And I proceed to show you something, I feel like it's fair for me to expect a certain level of attention. Similar to if you were to show me something that you're very interested in, or that you care deeply about, or that you're passionate about, I will sit there and give you my attention. I want to understand where you're coming from with your art and your creativity. I don't know, sometimes I think I sit there and I do feel hurt, but I need to realize that not everyone's the same, and not everyone tries to do this in a disrespectful manner. They're not trying to hurt me. That's not what their goal is, not their intention. I'll kind of go later on in the day or later on in the week, and I'll look back at those moments, and I kind of have to analyze and just realize I'm making a little more of a big deal than it should be. I will admit that there's times where I've taken it and just thought, okay, this person clearly doesn't care about what I have to show them, or isn't giving me the respect that I deserve. I have to go back and, remind myself that's not the case. Some people just do things differently. It probably takes a lot for some people to just sit there and even ask, hey, what are you working on? How's the music going? Some people won't do that, and that's okay. You don't have to. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm just saying that it is nice to have some kind of recognition on your passions. And I think anyone can agree with that, where it's just nice to have someone that if you explain something you're passionate about and they just bring it up out of nowhere, something about it feels great. It's almost like you noticed what I said, and I'm happy that you remembered that enough to even bring it up to me in the first place. You didn't have to do that, and the fact that you did just already shows more than most people get. For some examples, I would sometimes, tell my family, hey, I got new music. They'd ask, how's the music going? I'd even say, oh, I got a new album coming out. And sometimes, not always, I would be asked, oh, can we hear it? And, there's times where I start to show them that. And it's not it. Again, this isn't everybody. I know there's plenty of family and friends I have that will sit down and just drop everything and focus on what I'm showing them. And I love that. I think it's amazing. But there have been times where, I get asked, can I hear some of it? And we sit there, and as I'm trying to show them something, they start having a conversation with someone else. They start looking through their phone. They start watching, like put a TV on or something. And there are times like that where it does kind of hurt. I think my overall issue is what I do that to someone else that I care about. I start to take it in a more personal way than I think I should. And I don't know if that's right or wrong sometimes. And usually it comes down to me realizing, maybe I am in the wrong. I don't think they're trying to hurt me. That's not their intention. I know these people love me. I know they care about me. They didn't have to ask about the music in the first place, but they did. And I don't know. I think there's times where it's because of that seeking and longing of validation still lives within me from when I was younger. There's something about it that just feels good. It brings a source of happiness. The fact that I can sometimes start depending on that starts to hurt me, and I have to sit back and analyze that and realize it's a problem. Not everyone's the same. Not everyone has the same amount of attention to provide. Everyone does things their own way. So the fact that they sat there, even asked to listen to my music in the first place, I think does more than enough. I also know that I should be okay with expressing how that makes me feel. I think that's a valid thing, because realistically, if I don't tell them how I'm feeling, how are they to know? They don't know they're hurting me. So I think it's a two-sided thing where I feel maybe they should understand what they're doing, but at the same time, I need to tell them how I feel about it, because if I don't, odds are it's not going to change, and it creates an issue that only exists for one party. One party doesn't even know that issue exists, whereas the other party is sitting there and dwelling on it. I do think it would be nice for a majority of the time to get the undivided attention of someone who's asking me about my music. If you ask me what's going on, how's it going, can I hear some songs, and I sit down and I show you something, I would like some undivided attention every now and then. But I also understand that not everyone has that kind of time. Because of that, looking back on how I've handled certain situations or how I felt about certain situations, I can realize now that it's not always gonna be the same for everybody that asks these questions, or anybody that asks about my hobbies or my passions. I have so many friends and family that bring up music with me and talk about it and still ask about it. They're not always gonna ask every time to hear it, and that's okay with me. I just think the fact that they even remember that's what I'm doing, and that they care enough to even ask, that's already amazing to me. The one thing that doesn't feel good is having to bring it up myself. I don't want to have to. It almost feels like I'm trapping someone when I bring it up myself and say, hey, can I show you something? And I don't think I should feel that way. But I don't know if it's just me that starts to get the feeling of I don't want to come off as conceited or just overbearing if I'm the one that's bringing up the topic myself. I just cherish everybody that shows they care in any way. There's a minimum effort. And if you hit that, that's all that matters to me. I will cherish that, I'll enjoy that, and I'll remember that. I will always make sure to remember that. Everyone has their own life, and to take time out of their day just to ask about you is amazing. I think it's a luxury that I take for granted sometimes, and I need to just sit back and realize that I can't dwell on things too much. Sometimes I just start to overthink. It hurts me and myself only. I cause my own pain sometimes, and it's that chase for validation that kind of is the stem of it all. My validation is more than enough. That's all I need. As long as I know and remember that I'm doing this for me, and whatever I create is for myself, that's plenty of validation. That's perfect. And at the end of the day, I just want to thank all my friends and family that have ever supported me in any way, no matter what it was. I know for a fact they care. I know for a fact they love. Yeah, so inner thoughts, I guess. Either way. Deuces.